Imani Rivers never imagined that a simple night at Harlemember Grill could spiral into chaos. Life in the shadows of New York's underworld taught her one hard truth: loyalty is currency. Betrayal is deadly, and every choice can cost more than money. Some lessons aren't learned, they're survived. Malik King Ward watched the city like a predator in a jungle. To him, honor in the streets mattered more than law, and protecting his people meant breaking rules others would never dare. Yet even the most powerful men stumble when the past refuses to stay buried, and when desire clashes with duty, nothing stays clean. The air inside Harlemember Grill buzzed with tension. Imani's eyes darted toward Alicia Moore, whose laugh echoed too loudly, too carefree, ignoring the simmering storm around her. Malik leaned against the bar, dark skin gleaming under the neon lights, eyes sharp as daggers. Every movement he made radiated control, but the room whispered secrets he hadn't yet uncovered. Deshaun Briggs wiped down tables with practiced precision, pretending not to notice the subtle stares of the new Russian shipment's guards, shadows that crept in like wolves scenting prey. Imani's hand trembled slightly as she poured drinks. One wrong glance at Alicia, one careless slip, and Malik would notice. In his world, mistakes weren't forgiven, they were capitalized on. Outside, the rain pelted the streets, washing neon reflections across the asphalt. Inside, the storm was human voices raised, hearts racing, silent threats hidden in smiles. Malik's jaw tightened when he caught sight of Mikhail Volkov leaning too close to the kitchen door. Russians were ruthless, but they lacked honor. That flaw would cost them dearly. Alicia leaned back in her chair, unaware that Imani's gaze burned through her. Fun and flirtation could be deadly when layered over secrets. Every smile carried weight, every laugh risked disaster. Deshaun's hand hovered over the phone tucked in his pocket. He knew Malik's eyes never missed a single detail, and any hesitation could mean a violent lesson for someone innocent. Imani felt a chill despite the warmth of the grill. Malik's presence was magnetic, suffocating. His silence screamed louder than any threat. Obedience was expected. Loyalty demanded. Mikhail smirked, a predator confident in foreign streets, underestimating the local rules. He didn't realize that Harlem's game was played with invisible lines that only locals could see. Malik moved like liquid shadow, intercepting Mikhail before he could touch the cash crate. A single hand on the Russian's arm conveyed authority, danger, and a silent warning all at once. Imani's pulse quickened as she watched the tension unfold. Every inch of the room was a battlefield, every gesture a calculated move. Even breathing was tactical. Alicia's smile faltered when she sensed eyes on her. She was light-skinned, unaware how her carefree attitude could spark envy or suspicion in someone who had survived real violence. Malik's deep voice cut the room. "Nobody moves until I say so." The words rolled over everyone like a thunderclap, and even Mikhail hesitated, reassessing his audacity. Deshaun took a slow step back, mind racing. Protecting Imani meant making hard choices, and sometimes loyalty demanded violence before logic. Imani clutched a tray, pretending calm, while adrenaline sharpened every sense. She knew the Russians were dangerous, but her loyalty to Malik outweighed fear. The air thickened. Smoke from the kitchen mingled with tension, scents of grilled meat and perfume colliding, a sensory metaphor for the clashing forces in the room. Malik's eyes locked on Alicia one last time, understanding without words. Sometimes people in his orbit were innocent, sometimes reckless, but all required observation. Mikhail's hand twitched toward his jacket. Malik's instinct was instantaneous. A subtle flick of the wrist, and the motion warned of consequences that would come without hesitation. Imani's heart thudded as Malik's gaze swept past her, sharp and approving. She understood the unspoken. Survive tonight, earn trust, or be erased. Alicia finally noticed the unspoken hierarchy. The playful game she thought she controlled had rules she could never master in this room. Malik stepped forward, the scent of his cologne mixing with authority. Every move was precise, practiced every threat masked in civility. Deshaun leaned closer to Imani. "Stay calm," he whispered, voice low. "He's watching, but he trusts you." For now, Imani nodded subtly, focusing on the tray, hiding the storm of fear and determination within her chest. In this world, a slip of emotion could kill more than pride. Mikhail chuckled, too loudly, thinking audacity could shield him. Malik's stare made the laughter die in his throat, the warning unmistakable. Outside sirens wailed, but inside, time slowed. Every second stretched into eternity, every glance measured, every silence a threat. Alicia finally sensed danger. The way Malik's presence reshaped the room, commanding attention without shouting, made her instinctively recoil. Imani's mind raced. Plans she had rehearsed collided with reality, forcing improvisation. Survival wasn't about strength, it was about cunning, speed, and reading shadows. Malik finally broke the silence. "Russian boys think they own the streets. Let's show them differently." His tone suggested justice, not chaos, a signature of his brand of honor. Mikhail's smirk faded. He realized the game was beyond skill or aggression. It was about respect, control, and understanding unspoken laws of a world that demanded obedience above all. Imani adjusted her grip on the tray, each step measured. The tension wasn't just around her, it radiated from Malik, a magnetic force controlling the room's heartbeat. Deshawn's eyes flicked to the back door. Escape wasn't the option. Confrontation was inevitable. Every second they delayed gave the Russians hope, and hope was a weapon in the wrong hands. Alicia fidgeted with her bracelet, oblivious to how little room she had left to breathe. She was naive in a battlefield disguised as a grill, unaware that every gesture could spark violence. Malik's voice cut sharply, yet calm. You think you can challenge Harlem rules? Not here, not ever. His words were heavy with consequence, weighted by a lifetime of earned respect. Imani's chest tightened. The lesson was clear. The streets had ethics, even in chaos. Respect the rules, or pay in blood. Mikhail's fingers twitched again, a subtle rebellion against a force he didn't fully understand. Malik's glare fixed him in place, like gravity bending under unseen pressure. Deshawn moved closer to Imani, a silent shield, his presence a warning to anyone foolish enough to test boundaries. The hum of neon lights overhead cast distorted shadows, stretching bodies and intentions into shapes of menace and opportunity. Alicia's laughter faltered, a sound too high, too out of sync. It drew eyes like a flare, signaling danger to predators disguised as gentlemen. Malik stepped into the center of the room, presence rippling like water in a still pond. Commands flowed from him without movement. Control was his constant companion. Imani's pulse raced. Survival required precision, timing, and reading people like open books. One wrong line, one misstep, and the night could turn fatal. Mikhail swallowed, realizing that audacity alone would not win here. The rules were invisible, but lethal to those who ignored them. Deshawn's hand rested on his belt, near the concealed piece of steel everyone knew existed but never named aloud. Threats didn't need words, they had presence. Alicia finally sensed the gravity, her smile dimming as the air thickened with unspoken rules. She was no longer just a bystander, she was part of the battlefield. Malik's eyes scanned every corner, catching small tells, twitching fingers, shifting weight, restless eyes. The room was alive, but he was alive within it, predator and protector intertwined. Imani's thoughts raced, strategizing her moves while keeping a calm exterior. Every sip poured, every tray set, every glance calculated survival. Mikhail's confidence waned. In New York, raw power without wisdom was a liability. He now understood that clearly. Outside, the rain intensified, a relentless rhythm echoing the tension inside. Nature's chaos mirrored human conflict, indifferent and unyielding. Deshawn whispered under his breath, "Watch the exits. He sees everything, even what we can't." His voice carried respect and fear simultaneously. Imani adjusted her stance, noting Malik's subtle gestures. Every inch of movement had intention, every breath carried authority. Alicia's unease grew. This wasn't a game, wasn't flirting, this was a hierarchy that could crush her spirit if she missed. Malik's hand moved subtly, a signal only his inner circle would recognize. Obedience and understanding flowed silently among them, a dance invisible to outsiders. Imani swallowed, heart pounding. Her survival depended on awareness, speed, and reading the language of shadows around her. Mikhail tried to mask frustration with a smirk, but Malik's presence made pretense impossible. Respect wasn't optional, here it was survival. Deshawn's gaze shifted to the exit, calculating risk. Every potential escape route had consequences. Every delay carried the threat of violence. Alicia finally grasped that charm and laughter had no power here. Only understanding the code could keep her from becoming collateral. Malik's voice softened, yet carried unbreakable weight. Harlem isn't just streets and money, it's respect, loyalty, and consequences. Don't forget that Imani felt both relief and dread. Malik's approval was a lifeline, but one misstep could turn it into a verdict. Mikhail's bravado faltered, realizing that audacity without comprehension was a dangerous gamble. Deshawn remained alert, a silent observer and protector, knowing that every action could trigger chaos, and restraint was often the deadliest weapon. The room pulsed with tension, the kind that made every breath heavy, every glance charged. Time slowed, moments stretched, and the night itself seemed to hold its breath. Alicia fidgeted, eyes darting, realizing the invisible game she had stumbled into. Playfulness had no currency here. Awareness did. Imani's hand shook slightly, but she masked it with grace, moving through the room like water, blending calm with readiness. Malik's eyes never left the Russians. Power wasn't shouted, it was observed, understood, and respected or punished. Deshawn whispered again, almost to himself. Tonight, everyone learns their place. The words were both warning and prophecy. Imani nodded slightly, heart steadying, fully aware that the next hour would define loyalties, test courage, and reveal who truly commanded the night. The door slammed open, and a new figure stepped in. Vincent, Malik's cousin, known for settling scores without leaving a trace. His gaze swept the room, calculating, precise. Imani froze for a heartbeat. Vincent's presence was calm, almost casual, but it carried a weight that made even seasoned players reconsider moves. "Evening, folks," Vincent said smoothly, voice carrying a subtle threat beneath polite words. "I hear we're having trouble with outsiders." Deshawn's hand rested lightly on Imani's shoulder. He didn't speak, he just observed. Sometimes silence spoke louder than guns. Mikhail's face paled, realizing that he had just walked into a hierarchy he barely understood. Audacity without respect was fatal. Malik stepped forward, a shadow among shadows. "Vincent, you're just in time. These gentlemen were about to learn the rules." Alicia backed away, finally comprehending that charm and wit had no power here. Every move, every word, could become evidence in a system she didn't yet understand. Vincent smiled faintly. "Rules. I like rules. But I prefer results." His tone was smooth, but lethal undertone hummed in every syllable. Imani's pulse quickened. The air was thick, tension sharp enough to cut. She had to move carefully, but decisively. One slip, one misread gesture, and blood could be spilled. Deshawn stepped slightly in front of her. "We handled this our way. No unnecessary blood." His eyes met Vincent's, unflinching. Malik's laugh was low, almost musical. "See, that's why I trust my people. We play by codes, even when chaos knocks at the door." Vincent's eyes narrowed. "Codes, huh? And if someone breaks them?" His hand brushed his coat, a gesture loaded with implication. Imani took a deep breath, letting calm seep into her veins. The only way to survive was to anticipate, act with precision, and respect the invisible lines that defined life here. Mikhail tried to appear confident, but his twitch betrayed him. He realized the balance of power in this room was more delicate than he imagined. Alicia's eyes darted around, taking in every subtle gesture, every shift in posture. Survival meant understanding the silent language of authority. Malik leaned slightly toward Vincent, a whisper that carried authority. "We don't hurt the innocent, but those who cross lines, they pay the price." Vincent nodded, impressed, if only slightly. "Ethics in crime. Interesting." His smile was cold, almost amused. Deshawn adjusted his stance, keeping a careful distance while maintaining a protective perimeter around Imani and Alicia. The Russians shifted uncomfortably, realizing the code they had underestimated wasn't just tradition, it was lethal. Imani's hand subtly moved toward her belt, brushing against the weight she knew could save or end a life in seconds. Calculated presence was everything. Vincent's gaze flicked to Mikhail. "You think you can come here and challenge us?" His voice was calm, but the threat was unmistakable. Mikhail swallowed hard, realizing the depth of his mistake. Respect wasn't optional, it was survival. Malik's eyes swept across everyone, silent power emanating like heat. "Everyone knows their place here. Some of us remember what it means, others they learn fast, or they disappear." Alicia swallowed, understanding at last that the game was real, and charm, beauty, or luck had no power here. Only awareness and respect could keep her alive. Imani moved, placing a tray down in a way that commanded attention without inviting conflict. The small gesture reminded everyone of the balance, poise, awareness, and silent authority. Vincent's smirk faded slightly. He appreciated the subtlety. "Not bad," he murmured, almost to himself. "Some still understand the rules." Deshawn let out a quiet breath, feeling the room's tension settle slightly, but only slightly. Chaos could flare again in an instant. Malik's voice rang clearly, a signal that the test was over. "For now, leave if you came with violence in mind. Stay if respect is your guide. Choices define us all." Imani exhaled slowly, heart still racing. Tonight wasn't just survival, it was a lesson in life, ethics, and power in a world where law and morality often clashed with street codes. Mikhail realized that ambition without comprehension was fatal. Lessons here weren't optional. Respect wasn't just courtesy, it was insurance. Alicia's lips pressed into a thin line. She understood finally that grace alone didn't save anyone here. Awareness and discretion were currency. Vincent nodded once, satisfied enough to leave without incident. He exited as silently as he arrived, leaving a ripple of tension behind him. Malik's eyes returned to the group, calm but vigilant. "Remember, ethics and chaos are closer than you think. Learn that well." Deshawn let his gaze sweep the room one last time, ensuring no threats lingered. Silence settled, heavy but manageable. Imani felt her body relax slightly, though the adrenaline remained. She had survived a test, but the night wasn't over. Rules were lessons, and consequences were ever present. Alicia exhaled, a mix of relief and fear washing over her. She had witnessed a hierarchy that operated under its own code, lethal yet principled. Malik turned toward them, approving subtly. "Tonight, you learned more than any street fight could teach. That's how we survive, and how we live." The next day, the city felt heavier, as if it had absorbed the tension from last night. Imani and Deshawn walked through the alley behind Malik's club, the neon lights flickering against wet asphalt. "Think Vincent's going to come back?" Imani asked, voice low but steady. Deshawn shrugged. "He'll show up only if someone breaks the rules, or if someone thinks they're untouchable." Imani's jaw tightened. "Then we need to make sure nobody feels untouchable." Her hand brushed the edge of her coat pocket, reassuring herself that she was ready. A black SUV rolled up quietly, tires hissing against the asphalt. Malik emerged, flanked by Alicia and a couple of trusted lieutenants. His presence alone demanded attention. Even the shadows seemed to step aside. "Morning, team," Malik said. voice calm but carrying weight. The Russians are moving faster than expected. We can't afford mistakes. Alicia swallowed. They think they can push us around because they don't understand the code. Malik nodded. Exactly, and when ignorance meets arrogance, it's costly. Deshawn gave a subtle nod. So, what's the play? Malik's eyes scanned the streets, calculating like a general before battle. We hit them where it hurts. Financial, reputational, psychological. No unnecessary blood, but make sure they feel the pressure. Clear enough, Imani exhaled. Crystal. They'll know the rules exist whether they like it or not. Vincent appeared suddenly from the shadows, hands casually in his pockets. His smile was calm, but the tension he radiated was unmistakable. I heard my name whispered business trouble. Malik didn't flinch. Vincent, good timing. We were just discussing strategy. Vincent tilted his head. Strategy is interesting. Ethics even more so. Let me guess. You want to teach them a lesson without breaking your precious code. Malik's laugh was low. Bingo. I like my lessons permanent, not fatal. Deshawn's eyes narrowed, scanning for any hidden threat. We play by rules. That's all. You know it. Vincent's gaze flicked to Imani, then Alicia. Rules, codes, ethics. Fascinating. Most would just shoot first and ask questions later. Imani's hand lingered over her belt, not ready to act, but prepared. We don't do most things most people do. The Russians' territory was just across the street. Surveillance cameras, hidden eyes, even street performers doubled as informants. Malik's network had spread quietly, efficiently. A car honked. Someone was watching, noting patterns. The invisible chessboard was alive, pieces moving before anyone realized it. Tonight, we show them who sets the rules, Malik said quietly. Pressure, awareness, leverage, nothing else. Understand, understood, Imani replied, heart racing. She knew the difference between chaos and calculated action, and tonight it would be tested fully. Vincent's smirk faded slightly. Interesting. You play dangerous games, but with style. Alicia glanced at Imani. We're not just surviving, we're teaching lessons they'll never forget. Malik's gaze swept the horizon, sharp and calm. And that's how you maintain order. Respect, fear, and the invisible line between them. Cross it, and there's a cost, but we don't make it messy unless we have to. Deshawn exhaled slowly, tension settling slightly, but never fully leaving. In this world, calm was temporary. Chaos could erupt at any moment. Imani felt a surge of clarity. Tonight was more than survival, it was demonstration. They would remember the rules, remember the hierarchy, and most importantly, remember that crossing Malik's code had consequences beyond mere punishment. Vincent's silhouette faded into the alley. His presence lingered, a silent reminder that power, respect, and ethics could coexist, even in a city ruled by shadows. Malik turned to the group, nodding slightly. Get ready. Tonight, they'll learn the lesson of respect, the hard way. Imani straightened, shoulders squared. The night had just begun, but she knew every move counted. Every glance was a signal, and every action could tip the balance between survival and disaster. The city was quiet, deceptively so. The kind of silence that felt like the calm before a storm. Imani adjusted her coat and checked her phone, reading Malik's brief instructions once more. Deshawn leaned against the wall, cigarette glowing faintly in the night. You ready for this? Imani gave a small nod. As ready as I'll ever be. The Russians' hideout was just across the industrial district. Lights flickered behind grime-stained windows. Shadows moved inside, unaware of the storm approaching. Malik signaled, and the team split silently, slipping through the alleys like ghosts. Every step calculated, every breath controlled. Vincent was already waiting near the entrance, his presence calm yet ominous, planning a party without inviting me. He joked lightly. Imani forced a smile. We keep it professional, Vincent. He raised an eyebrow. Professional? Huh. That's new. Alicia motioned, and they breached the side entrance. Cameras caught them, but Malik's tech had already looped the feed. They were invisible. Inside, the Russians were arguing, unaware of the shadows closing in. Their arrogance was their weakness, Deshawn whispered. They think we won't touch them tonight. Big mistake. Imani focused on the crates of contraband, noting the layout. Pressure points first, then leverage, she murmured. Malik appeared behind them, silent as a shadow. Remember the code. Minimal force, maximum effect. Vincent chuckled. Always the moral compass, huh? The first step was psychological. They sent false messages, rigged alarms, and subtle scares enough to make the Russians doubt themselves without anyone dying. A loud crash echoed through the room as crates were moved strategically. Panic spread, eyes darting, tempers flaring. Imani felt a rush. Every move, every glance, every whispered threat mattered. One of the Russians reached for a gun. Alicia's sharp warning stopped him. Think before you act. You're outmatched. The tension escalated, whispers turning into frantic decisions. Malik watched, guiding the operation like a conductor. Deshawn disabled communications, ensuring no call for reinforcements could be made. Vincent observed quietly, a subtle smile on his lips. I like how you handle chaos. The Russians finally realized they were trapped not by force, but by precision, strategy, and reputation. Imani stepped forward, voice firm. You've broken the rules. You've crossed lines. Tonight you'll understand consequences without bloodshed. Their leader, a tall man with a scar across his cheek, laughed nervously. You think you can scare me? Malik's voice cut through the room, calm but deadly. We don't scare, we educate. You'll leave here knowing the cost of ignorance. A tense silence followed. The Russians could feel the invisible chains closing in, every option evaporating. Imani gestured and the team moved systematically, collecting evidence, disabling weapons, ensuring control. Alicia whispered, "This is artistry. Strategic domination without a single shot fired." Vincent nodded. "Ethics with teeth. I approve." The leader finally dropped his weapon, sweat on his brow. All right, we get it." Imani didn't relax. "You get it. But remember, respect isn't optional. Break the code again, and the next lesson won't be so gentle." Malik surveyed the room. "Check the perimeter. Ensure no surprises." Deshawn confirmed quietly. "Clear, everyone accounted for." Vincent approached Malik. "You've done it again. Order through fear and respect. Impressive." Malik smiled faintly. "Sometimes leadership is about restraint, not chaos." The Russians were escorted outside, humiliated but alive. Their reputation was shattered, their arrogance curbed. Imani exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the night lift. "Lesson learned," she murmured, almost to herself. Alicia chuckled softly. "And they'll tell everyone about it. Our names now mean something." Vincent lingered a moment longer. "You've changed the rules tonight, subtly but effectively. I respect that." Malik nodded, proud but composed. "The city respects order. We enforce it." Deshawn glanced at the skyline. "Quiet night. Feels good." Imani watched the horizon, neon reflecting in her eyes. "It's never truly quiet, but tonight, we controlled the storm." Vincent finally disappeared into the shadows, leaving only a lingering sense of awe. Malik clapped his hands lightly. "Back to the safe house. Debrief, then rest." "We've earned it." Imani walked beside Deshawn, thoughts racing. "Do you think they'll ever try again?" Deshawn shook his head. "Not soon. They know we play by rules, and crossing them has consequences." Alicia laughed softly, relief evident. "We survived, and we've set the standard." Imani felt a mixture of exhaustion and pride. The night had tested them all, and they emerged stronger. Malik's final words lingered in her mind. "Power is respect, discipline, and the courage to act without cruelty. Remember that." Imani smiled faintly. "I'll remember." The city continued to pulse, unaware of the silent battle fought in the shadows. But for those who knew the code, tonight would be remembered. Malik, Vincent, Imani, Deshawn, and Alicia left the district, walking into the quiet night with heads held high. Imani glanced back once, neon lights reflecting in her eyes. "We did what needed to be done." Deshawn nodded. "And nobody got hurt more than their pride." Alicia added, "Order restored. Lessons taught. The city can sleep a little safer." Vincent's shadow disappeared into the alley, a final nod of approval unseen by most. Malik's team returned to their headquarters, tired but victorious. "This is how we lead," Malik said softly. Imani breathed in the cool night air. "And this is how we survive: smart, ethical, unstoppable." The streets were calm again, but the code lived on, invisible and omnipresent. And in the heart of the city, shadows moved. Respect was earned, and the lesson of the night would echo for a long time. Imani smiled faintly. "We're not just surviving, we're shaping the rules." Deshawn smirked. "And that's the only way to truly win." The night ended, but their legacy had begun. Months had passed since that night. The city had returned to its usual rhythm, but the echoes of their actions still lingered. Imani sat in a small cafe, sipping black coffee. News screens above showed headlines about gang crackdowns and organized crime arrests. She allowed herself a quiet smile. Their message had spread. Deshawn walked in, shaking his head with a grin. "You really scared them into submission. And they're still talking about it." Imani chuckled. "Sometimes fear is the only teacher who listens." Alicia joined them, carrying a folder of recent intel. "Orders are changing. Alliances are shifting. The city respects the code now. People know crossing us has consequences." Malik entered quietly, coffee in hand. "And no blood was spilled. That's the way it should be. Our influence grows, but we don't become what we fight." Vincent appeared from the shadows, leaning casually against the doorway. "You've done well. People whisper your names in awe now. Even the toughest crews pause when they see you coming." Imani took a deep breath. "I didn't do this for fame. I did it to set the rules straight. To protect the city." In a way, Deshawn laughed. "Yeah, protect the city, that's one way to put it." Months of careful planning and discipline had changed them all. The team was stronger, smarter, and more connected than ever. Alicia opened the folder. "Intel shows the Russians are keeping low. They've learned their lesson, and no one is left in doubt about who controls respect." Malik nodded. "Control doesn't mean domination, it means balance. We enforce order so chaos doesn't get the upper hand." Imani's eyes drifted to the window, sunlight reflecting off skyscrapers. "Sometimes I wonder, will it ever really be quiet?" Vincent smirked. "Quiet is temporary. Influence is permanent. And we've established ours." Deshawn leaned back, stretching. "It's strange. For once I feel like we've actually made a difference. Imani smiled faintly. We have. Not through violence, but through strategy, restraint, and ethics. That's rare in our world. Malik looked at her seriously. And that's why you're ready for the next challenge. Always remember, power isn't about fear alone. It's about respect, restraint, and clarity. Alicia nodded. And now the city whispers your story. People follow the code not out of fear of death, but fear of being dishonored, Vincent added. And that's stronger than bullets. Always remember that. Imani leaned back, feeling a strange calm. The night they controlled chaos had changed them all, and the city had adjusted. Deshawn smiled. I guess we've become legends, huh? Imani laughed softly. Legends who act responsibly. That's even better. Months later, the team gathered in the old safe house. They weren't just surviving, they were shaping the city's rules. Vincent raised a glass. To influence, restraint, and the code. Malik joined the toast. To the city we protect. In our way, Imani raised hers last, smiling at the team. To balance, and to knowing the right way to lead. Alicia smiled. And to never forgetting the night that started it all. The sun set over the skyline, painting the city in warm golds and reds. Shadows and light danced, just as they always would. And in that dance, the legacy of Imani, Malik, Vincent, Deshawn, and Alicia was written not in blood, but in respect, strategy, and honor. The city slept, safer than it had been in years. The storm had passed, but the lesson remained. And somewhere, in the quiet streets and neon-lit alleys, their names carried weight, not fear, but influence, respect, and justice by their rules. Imani whispered to herself, we survived, we thrived, and we made sure others could too. Deshawn glanced at her, and that's the difference. We don't destroy, we lead, Malik added, and that's how the code lives on. Alicia smiled, quietly satisfied. The city remembers the night, and now it remembers us. Vincent's shadow lingered briefly in the doorway. Legends, not monsters. That's rare and powerful. The team watched the city below, their reflection in the glass. They had changed, the city had changed, and the future was theirs to guide. Imani finally leaned back, letting herself feel peace for the first time in months. The storm was over, but the code would endure, and so would they.